Welcome to the Winter 1 online captains meeting. In this video, you will learn about many of the intramural sports policies and procedures, as well as a few sport-specific rules to help you complete the necessary captains quizzes. To start, we would like to introduce our intramural sports staff. Up first is our Senior Assistant Director, Cheryl Gendrico Wright. Next up is our Assistant Directors, Nick DeMarchi and AJ Haddock. And finally, we have our student coordinators, Brandon Barlog, John Brown, and Chad Zimmerman. To get things started, we wanted to talk about the most important part of intramural sports, sportsmanship. Good sportsmanship benefits everyone, and one person exhibiting bad sportsmanship can make an otherwise fun experience much less enjoyable. In order to maintain the proper playing environment, a sportsmanship rating policy has been established. Each contest will be rated by the officials. Teams will begin the game or event with 10 sportsmanship points. During the course of the contest, teams may lose points if their behavior deteriorates. Point deductions have been broken down into the following 3 levels. Level 1 is a 1-point deduction and is the least severe. This includes things such as verbal warnings and administrative penalties. Level 2 is a 3-point deduction. This includes things such as certain in-game penalties along with spectator penalties. Level 3 is a 7-point deduction and is the most severe. This level includes things such as flagrant ejections and alcohol consumption. There are also certain sport-specific deductions for each level that can be viewed here. There is a zero tolerance policy in regards to alcohol in intramural sports. It is not allowed at any of our facilities, nor should it be used prior or during any events. Anyone suspected of consuming alcohol prior to their event will be ejected and their game will be forfeited. Along with that, we have a zero tolerance policy regarding verbal or physical abuse towards officials, supervisors, and other participants. We are here to promote sportsmanship. No abuse will be tolerated. For the Winter 1 season, men's and co-recreational leagues will be available. In all of our men's leagues, female participation is allowed. It is important to note that in all of our co-rec leagues, there are a certain number of males and females that are needed to participate at the same time. If you are not sure that you will always have the necessary number of males and females, we would suggest you play in the men's league. In order to participate in intramural sports, you must adhere to at least one of the following. You can be a currently enrolled student, or you can purchase a valid Rec Sports membership. If you have any questions regarding memberships, please visit our website at recsports.umich.edu/members. Any of those eligible participants may play on one co-rec team and one non-co-rec team per sport. Current intercollegiate athletes are not allowed to compete on an intramural team in their sport or related sport. For example, a current football player could not play flag football, but they could participate in our basketball leagues. Additionally, teams are only allowed to have one current club athlete and one ex-varsity athlete on an intramural team in their sport or related sport. So, the club softball team cannot create a softball team, but they can create a soccer team. When you arrive to your game, you should present your M card to the official on your court or field who is checking players in. If someone on your team misuses an M card, your team will not be eligible to play in the playoffs. Remember, it is up to you, the captain, to make sure everyone on your team checks in with the officials. All players that are going to participate in the game must have their M card checked in by the game official. Additionally, players must be on the roster in order to play in the game. To get on the roster, players must join their team on our scheduling website, umich.athleague.com. All players must join the team on the website before they can participate in any games. Now are some important notes about the rosters. As the captain of your team, you will need to make sure these things are taken care of by 12 p.m. noon the day of your game. Once again, these need to be done by noon. First, make sure your roster is set on Athleague. To do this, you need to make sure that all of your players have individually created profiles and registered for your team. If someone is not added to the roster by noon the day of your game, or by noon Friday for a Sunday game, that person will not appear on the game day roster and will not be allowed to play in the game that night. It is important to note that players must have participated in at least one regular season game to be eligible to play during the playoffs. As the captain, it is your responsibility that each player is on your roster by noon, as well as your responsibility to check that each player has signed in for every game. If you need more players for your team, you can use the free agent board that is located on the Athleague website. If during your game you feel that the rules in the game have been unfairly administered, your team may protest the particular event, provided the protest procedure adheres to the following guidelines. It is important to know that all protests must be made by the team captain only. A rules interpretation protest occurs based on a misinterpretation of the rules by the official and must be made to an official at the time of the alleged misinterpretation occurs and prior to the next live ball. An administrative interpretation protest occurs based on a misinterpretation of the intramural sports policies and procedures and must be made before the end of the game. An eligibility protest involves players' eligibility in a contest in which the protesting team participated in and must be made before the next live ball. You will then see the on-site supervisor and receive a protest form. These protest forms must be submitted with a $20 down payment to the Intramural Sports Building main office by 4:30 p.m. the next business day following your game. Inclement weather happens, and there's nothing we can do about it. If it does happen, decisions will be made and posted on our Facebook and Twitter pages, or you can call the Intramural hotline at 734-763-0050. Forfeits should be avoided at all costs. Not only does it affect your team, it affects the teams you should have been playing. A forfeit occurs when a team does not have enough players to play in a game. If this happens, the opposing team will have the option to take the win or to wait 10 minutes to see if the other team will arrive. If the team still does not arrive after 10 minutes, it will be a forfeit. If your team forfeits, it will result in a loss for the game and you will lose 7 SRS points. This year, we have been trying out a new policy. In order to cut down on forfeits, if you know your team will not make it to your game, we will now be offering the chance to default a game. You will have the opportunity to email us at intramurals@umich.edu with your team name, the league your team is in, and the time and date of the game you won't be able to attend by noon the day of your game. Doing this will give our office a greater chance to fill this game, and because of this, your team will only lose 3 SRS points rather than the 7 you would lose for a forfeit. However, your team will only be able to default or forfeit 1 game per season. Now on to the biggest question, is your team going to make the playoffs? The quick answer is every team has a chance to make the playoffs. However, there are certain occurrences that will keep a team from making them. One of these is if a player on your team improperly uses an M card, or your team did not complete the intramural sports policy quiz and sports-specific quiz. Additionally, you cannot have defaulted or forfeited more than 1 game. And at the base of the pyramid, your team must finish the regular season with at least 31 SRS points. In the playoffs, teams must maintain 7 or more SRS points or the game will be forfeited. At the University of Michigan, we have 2 separate playoff brackets. If your team's winning percentage is 50% or better, you will make the A level or championship playoffs. If your team's winning percentage is less than 50%, then you will make the B level or consolation playoffs. You can mark your calendars now for our playoff instant scheduling, which will take place on Monday, February 11th for the Winter 1 season. If you need help signing up for that, you can click on the link below, which will take you to a video which will explain that process more. Now to explain a Cliff Notes version of our Winter 1 sports rules. First, we have our 5-on-5 basketball single-sex and co-rec leagues. All games will be played at the Intramural Sports main gym. IM basketball will consist of 2 22-minute halves, the first of which is 22 minutes of running clock. In the second half, though, the last 2 minutes of the game will use stop clock mechanics if the point differential is less than 10. 3 players are required to start and finish a game. There are no timeouts during the regular season, but timeouts are permitted in the semifinals and finals. Tie games will be resolved in a 2-minute overtime. The mercy rule will be in effect at the 20-minute mark of the second half when one team is leading by 20 or more points. Please remember to be respectful to all game officials and supervisors. Many of our dedicated officials are students and in the learning process to gain more experience in officiating sports. All foul calls and rule discretions will be made final by our officials. Basketball co-rec modifications are pretty straightforward. With a minimum of 3, teams must have at least 1 person of each sex, but the difference cannot be greater than 1. In co-rec B, girl baskets are worth an additional point. Next is our men's and women's inter-tube water polo season. All games will be played at the Intramural Sports Building pool. Inter-tube water polo is a non-contact sport consisting of 7 players on each side, one of which is a goalkeeper. 4 players are required to start and continue a game. All players must sit butt down in a tube, and if they fall out, the only thing they may do is get right back in. When a team receives 6 personal fouls, they will lose 1 SRS point and a penalty shot will be awarded to the opponent. Always a popular sport among Michigan students, we are offering our co-rec indoor soccer season. All games will be played at the Sports Coliseum located on Hill Street across from Elbel Field. Games will consist of two 22-minute halves. Indoor soccer is 4-on-4 with one goalie. Teams must have 3 players to start and finish games. Subs can be made on the fly. Games are played on a court similar to that of a basketball court, and goals cannot be scored within the designated goal area. Please show respect toward our student officials, as there are several rule changes to indoor soccer this season. New this year, we will no longer have throw-ins. All restarts will be conducted with a kick, whether that be a kick-in or a corner kick. Please read over our online rules to get a better clarification before your first match. The co-rec modifications for indoor soccer are very similar to our basketball ones. With a 3-player minimum, teams must have at least 1 male and 1 female. The gender difference can be no greater than 1. In co-rec B only, girl goals count as 2 points. Finally, we have our single-sex and co-rec volleyball leagues. All games will be played in the intramural sports building racquetball courts on the lower level on your way to the weight room. Teams consist of 4 players with a 2-player minimum. 3 games are played to 25 via rally score. Teams must win by 2, and there's a 55-minute time limit. The server must be within 3 feet of the back wall. The ceiling, opposite wall, and 2 consecutive walls is a fault. The back wall is out. There are no co-rec modifications for this sport, but please remember that the +1 gender difference remains in effect for volleyball as well. Please note that these are only the main rules for each of our sports. It is up to you, the captain, to read the rules on our Rec Sports website for further detail and disseminate the entirety of our rules to your teammates. Stay connected with us through our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube pages, or check our offerings at our Rec Sports website. If you have any questions regarding what you saw in this video, please don't hesitate to contact us at intramurals@umich.edu. To complete your requirements, you need to complete the Captain quiz along with the sport-specific quiz. You can click on the links below. Captain's quizzes are due for the full 10 SRS points by the first day of games at noon on Sunday, January 20th. Any quizzes turned in after that time will result in just 1 SRS point, but your team will maintain its playoff eligibility. Thanks for watching. We hope this helped. Have a great day. Go Blue.